So we got a question about what the first step is in becoming polyamorous. I think that they kind of meant the second step because they were already undertaking the first step, which is researching, right? Reading, getting other ideas, kind of coming to understand what options are out there. Making sure that polyamory is really what you're looking for rather than swinging or some BDSM dynamic that might be some mixture of those. But when you decide you want to be polyamorous, I guess, to answer that question, the first thing I think you need to do if you're in a committed relationship is decouple. It doesn't mean break up. So please hear me. I don't mean that your relationship should end. But if you've been monogamous with someone, especially if you've been monogamous with someone for a long time, then often you've developed a certain type of enmeshment where your identity and their identity become really difficult to separate. If they're sad, you're sad suddenly. Just they're having a bad day, that means you're having a bad day. They're upset, that means you're upset. Your friends, you have friends that are their friends, and their friends are your friends. Their family is your family, right? Um, and of course, there are some positive things about that, but often that becomes a type of codependence where you really can't see how you're a separate person from them, where they're sad and you could commiserate with them, so you could enter into that with them, but you also don't have to. You might have a good day, have something big planned. You might not be able to take care of their needs right now because you've got something else you've got to do. When it comes to friendship, having different friends where you're not always with the same people, doing the same things. These things have to change before you ever enter into another relationship. Because if the first time your partner and you are doing something totally different, while one of you is struggling with a negative emotion, and that thing that your partner is doing is going on a date with somebody else for the first time, you are going to panic because not only are you going to be dealing with what it's like to deal with your emotions on your own, you're going to also be dealing with likely the jealousy, the insecurity, the instability, the not knowing of what's going to come of this date. What will they do physically? Will they like them? And then, of course, the insecurities. Are they prettier than me? Are they better looking? Are they, do they do something sexually I can't do or don't do? Um, it's a lot. Now, when you learn to decouple and you learn to take on your own life and your own feelings, that experience might still have some negativity, but the positivity behind it begins to outweigh it. When my partners go on dates, often I'm happy, not because I don't want to see them, but because it gives me a chance to do something else that I need to do, or hang out with my friends, or go on a date myself. I'm not actually dating anybody else right now, but if I were, I could do that. I could explore other connections. Um, and I don't have many negative feelings about those things, but I did in the beginning, and I was not necessarily um, heeding my own advice here because I didn't take those first steps of decoupling. And so I was having to deal with all these feelings on my own for the first time without ever having had to deal with a feeling. So practically, what does this mean you should do? It means before you start dating anybody, you need to start practice the kinds of things you would do if you were going to date. Like having your own friends, just friends that are separate from your partner's friends, going out with those friends while your partner is doing whatever your partner's doing, having some periods of time where you're not communicating, you don't know exactly what your partner's doing. I know these things can start to feel scary, and you might come up with excuses. I need to know where my partner is. It's a safety concern. Well, maybe, and maybe having your partner's location on your phone is good enough for that. But do you really need to be texting them every 30 minutes, or even every hour or 2 hours? If you have that kind of enmeshment where you need that communication that's so frequent, they may have trouble developing another relationship. You may have trouble developing another relationship. If you need the constant reassurance to keep you from dealing with negative feelings, that's going to interfere with their relationship, and they're likely going to resent you for that. You're going to probably resent yourself for that. So, learning to deal with these things is totally doable. It's absolutely something that all couples can achieve. And it's something that I think is beneficial for monogamous couples as well. Because when you have separate lives and shared lives, it's so much more interesting to talk to. Think about when you first started dating. If you first start dating somebody and you have all these things to talk about and catch up on, and the interest that they're sharing, the stories you weren't there for, their family members and friends, the same can happen if you maintain both separate lives and lives as a couple. You'll have new people to introduce them to. You'll have stories to tell. You'll have new interests to share. That gets magnified with polyamory because you have different shared partners and your own individual lives, and that's a great experience. But if it's the first time you're seeing your partner develop a new interest because their other partner happens to be interested in archery, and now suddenly it feels like your partner's becoming a whole new person that you never knew before, because it's really not the case. They just are developing a new interest, which is to be expected when you have new friends or partners or family members or whatever. It's scary though if you've never decoupled. So this is the first step for anybody who wants to be successful in polyamory.